Hello everybody, the game is afoot.
The game is afoot.
I am about to start on another part of my Sherlock Holmes costume. Previously, I've made this Sherlock Holmes deerstalker cap.
It's a death frisbee. It's an ear hat, John.
I didn't film any of it, but now I'm going to make a vest to go with it. My mom used to wear this little pencil skirt. It is the limited brand, so nothing too expensive or anything. It just didn't fit her needs anymore. She's gonna get rid of it, and I thought that is a very close match to this hat. As you can see, they're not the exact same color, but it's close enough. To make the skirt, I plan on using a pattern, or rather one of two patterns kind of combined. I found this booklet that has real Victorian patterns, and in it there is a shirtwaist or vest pattern. Some of the pattern pieces aren't exactly my size. I'm not the ideal Victorian body shape, and I know they padded, they used corsetry, they did all this stuff to make the clothes fit their ideal proportions rather than their body fitting the clothes fitting the body fitting the clothes. One of those two. The other pattern I have is the Calls pattern. It is from 1982. I will be doing pattern B because to me it looks like the most Victorian. I'm not sure if I'm going to use the real pattern or this one. This is a size 12, which isn't exactly my size either. Let's see here. I would be about a size 8 or 10, somewhere in between there. So this would also need to have a little bit of change, a little bit of alteration to it. I really hope I can use the Victorian one, or this would be the second one. But with it being a skirt, I only have some fabric, not maybe all of it, for the whole vest. So the back of the vest will use the lining layer, but also I have this black fabric that I thrifted. I used for a previous project, my altering a vintage skirt. So I'm excited to get started. So without further ado, let's get crafting. Here I have both the patterns. This is the 80s pattern that I've just folded in the waistline to make it fit me. And this is the facing folded in. And underneath is the Victorian pattern, which you can see has a lot more darts in it. Even the back has some darts, which I think is very nice. And the more modern one only has one big dart in the front. The armhole is much longer in the 80s one. And something that I find interesting is how the front is also curved slightly differently. Now if we compare the back, let's line it up here. This curves in much more than this one, so it will be obviously much more fitted. And also the arm are different. I'd have to turn it this much and still the lines don't match. I'm really hoping I can use this Victorian one. I'll make a mock-up of maybe half of each and see how they turn out. My next step was to trace the Victorian pattern so I could make a mock-up. Now that I've cut out the Victorian pattern piece, it is much easier to see the differences between these two. I know that the 80s pattern is actually a size or two bigger, but there's still a noticeable difference in the armhole size and even the darts that are placed. There is no seam allowance on the Victorian one yet, but I still think that it will be smaller than this pattern piece once I do add seam allowance. Now it's time for the mock-ups. I finished the mock-up and it doesn't quite close. I knew it wouldn't completely work. The bust is okay, but I think the 2 darts is too many. It's making it too small. I'm going to try taking them both out and only adding 1 dart in the middle here. Today is Christmas, hence my festive shirt. You can see some of the Christmas decorations in the bathroom here. So yeah, that's the plan. Merry Christmas. I've taken out one of the darts on each side. I played around and did the front dart on my right side and then the back dart on my left side. I think I'll still move the dart into the center, but if I had to keep one, I think I like the front dart better, so it might be okay to have it. But now that I have removed a dart from each side, I'll do this one-handed, but I can close the front of it and the points will match up once I have 2 hands to close this. But I think I'm going to start on with the project and the actual fabric. This is exciting. I realize I never showed you the back. It's very hard, but I like the darts in the back. I started by cutting out the lining fabric. It was less daunting than using the actual fabric. You can always buy more black cotton, but I only had 1 skirt to upcycle. As you can see, I barely had enough fabric left over from my upsizing a skirt project to get the lining out, but I made it work. This will be a reoccurring theme, as you'll see. I seamed rip half of my mock-up to use as a cutting guide. Then I used the actual pattern to mark out the stitch lines. I sewed the lining pieces together to make sure the new dart placement was accurate. It was. However, this step had to be undone later because I didn't read the instructions and I actually needed to make the lining differently. Finally, it was time to seam rip the skirt to harvest the fabric. The brand was the Limited and it was actually very well made. I was about to go and sew up the vest backing, but it was a thinner, slippier fabric than I'd been using, so I decided to do a test piece. And good thing I did because it got sucked in by the little feet this much. I'm going to try a thinner new needle and hopefully that will work, but good thing I didn't use my only fabric that I have for this. So I was unscrewing the needle from here and I didn't have a hand on it and it just dropped down there and I don't see it at all. Whoops. I have to somehow get underneath there and find that needle. After about an hour of poking, prodding, magnets, tweezers, screwdrivers, and paintbrushes, and also one big meltdown by me, I never did find that needle, and as far as I know, it's still in the machine right now. The machine still works, but I was very scared that I had completely broken my sewing machine. After all that needle drama, I switched to a thinner needle and started sewing the backing of my vest. The vest back was harvested from the skirt's lining. Because of this, the fabric was very slippery and it shed a lot. So I ran a zigzag stitch along the edges to stop the fraying. With all the darts, I first hand basted them by doing a loose running stitch. Then I sewed over it with the actual machine. After cutting out the front of the vest, this was all the fabric I had left to make 2 welt pockets and the collar. I ended up using some of the lining fabric from the skirt as the underside of the collar, or the facing of the collar fabric. Something I had forgotten to cut out earlier was the facing for the lapel. this, I tried to squeeze out as much as I could from the remaining fabric. I pinned and sewed the facing to the front of the vest. I top stitched the seam allowance towards the center of the vest to help the lapel lay down nicely. Then it was time to sew the vest backing to the front of the vest by the shoulder seams. I kept out the facings. So I just finished sewing the shoulder seams and I switched the fronts around. Now I'll have to seam rip and try it again. Take 2. I'm about to do Welt Pocket, a real Welt Pocket in this vest. I did a little mock-up tester so I know this is the first time I've ever done one, and I think it went pretty well, but it's just so nerve-wracking on the real thing because this is all the fabric I have left. I don't have enough to fix it, so let's go, I guess. I'm not going to explain the process of how to do a double welt pocket because I just learned, and you'll find out soon enough why you shouldn't be following what I'm doing here. One really good video I watched was by Cornelius Ring. Sorry if I mispronounced his name, but he really took you step by step clearly on how to do a double welt pocket. Did I just sew the welts on the wrong way? Okay, so I seam ripped only one of the sides, so I'll sew up one side at a time. Hopefully I don't mess this up again. Oop, came unthreaded. And this time I am not using pins, so we'll see how good of an idea that was. We got caught on something. Okay, this was the correct way. Oofda. Now on to seam ripping the other side. Alright, I just finished sewing the second flap, and let's see how this looks. Ooh, it looks so good. At least better than before. I think it'll look great after I do a nice press. We'll go on from there. I have pinned, well, you can see I've probably overpinned the welt, and this is the overlap I want. Now I am going to sew top stitch so it welt flaps stay in place. Hopefully this goes well. I switched out my needle to a heavier one because there is a lot of fabric here. There we go. The first side is done. On to the next. Actually, I'll be attaching the fabric bag for the pouch soon. Then it'll be on to the next. here it is. It'll need a good pressing. But man, I think that looks pretty good for only my second time. This is a hard fabric to work with. I decided to wait on the little fabric pouch, but that's the next step. There I have it. A nice little pocket can fit my seam ripper, and very well made if I do say so myself. I know it's not perfect, but it is very nice. After sewing the second welt pocket, I ironed on interfacing to the collar. Then I sewed the collar facing to the front. Then I top stitched all along the collar. And I machine basted the collar onto the vest. As you probably can't see from my stellar filming, I would sew together the lining to the facing. If you remember, I completely sewed together the lining, and it was a copy of the outer shell of the vest. I had to seam rip it apart to sew the lining to the facing. The extra bit was then sewn onto the facing as kind of like an interfacing. When sewing the lining to the facing, I had to be careful not to have the stitches sew onto the front of the vest. Afterwards, I top stitched the facing. Next, I sewed the vest back and fronts together by the shoulder seams. I kept out the lining and facing. The vest lining and facing were sewn together at the shoulder seams. Then it was time to combine the lining and outer part of the vest by sewing together the collar, the armpits, and the bottom. The vest was then turned inside out through the openings left on the sides. Then everything was top stitched down. The outer vest was closed up by sewing along the side seams. I used ribbon from the skirt as the waistcoat cinch. They're sewn on at the darts in the back and lined up with the welts in the front. Later, I sewed on some D-rings. Finding the lining of the vest was sewn shut by hand. I added in the garment tag as a joke. My needle isn't going down. When I did my one test, it worked. Now my needle won't go down on the button setting. Okay, normal stitch is fine. Setting the stitch width for the buttonhole to 3. Pushing this all the way back. Engage the button foot. Alright, take 2. There we go. My thread just snapped. No. Okay, we'll rethread it and hopefully this went back in its original place. I think that will work. Alright, 3 more to go. This is all that's left from the skirt. Over here are the notions, zipper, some of the ribbon, tag. This is the outer skirt. The outer skirt is over here. And here is the lining, and that's it. My vest is done. I love how it turned out. It looks very fitted, but it's not tight at all. I still have plenty of room. I love that there are real working pockets. I had so much trouble with the machine again. It's an old machine, but oh well, it is what it is. There's some wrinkling here. It got funny when I top stitched, but oh well. I just tacked down the lapels also because I didn't really want to stay down. On the back I have some D-rings. They're a little bit too small, but they still managed to fit. I'm just so happy that I could go and have another addition to my Sherlock costume here. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy crafting!